Welcome to another episode of Management Unplugged by GR. Imagine this. It's 2011. There's this company, right? Seems like they have absolutely everything going for them. Super innovative, disrupting a whole industry. And Fortune magazine, they just named the CEO, Reed Hastings, Business Person of the Year.
Back in 2010.
Yeah, that was Netflix. They were the absolute darlings.
Exactly, Netflix. Totally dominating the DVD by mail scene. They built this huge empire, millions of loyal subscribers. You genuinely felt like they could do no wrong. They'd, conquered the giants.
Right.
But then it's almost like overnight, they just walked straight into their own, corporate horror movie.
It happened so fast.
Subscriber growth just hits a wall, screeches to a halt. And their stock, it was flying high at $300 a share.
Yeah, way up there.
Plummets. Down to $77
Wow.
in just a few months. What on earth happened? How does a company that everyone loved fall so hard so fast?
Well, it's really a classic cautionary tale, isn't it? A fascinating look at how even a company at the very top, peak success, with a truly visionary leader.
Can make a series of decisions that, looking back, seem almost perfectly designed to tick off their most loyal customers and just tank their market value. It's really about the double-edged sword of innovation.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to pull back the curtain on, frankly, one of the most astonishing strategic blunders and public relations fiascos in recent corporate history.
It was pretty spectacular.
We're going to unpack that crazy summer and fall of 2011 for Netflix, really focus on the specific decisions that led to this mass customer exodus, this huge loss of market value.
Right.
We'll trace a controversial price hike, that baffling attempt to split the company in two, and also the massive competitive pressures that were really reshaping their future.
And it wasn't just one thing, it was this confluence of factors.
Totally. And hey, don't worry, amidst all the, the corporate drama and the sheer, head-scratching absurdity of some of these moves, we'll definitely find some humor in it. Because sometimes things go so wrong, you just have to laugh, right?
You really do. And it's more than just a series of bad calls. It's a deep look at, the psychological biases, the organizational traps that can lead even the most successful companies to just misjudge their customers, the market, even the pace of change around them.
It's a great point.
What's really fascinating, though, is how the seeds of their future success were kind of inadvertently sown in these very mistakes.
Okay, so let's really unpack this. To get the sheer scale of Netflix's stumble in 2011, we kind of need to go back first, understand where they came from. Their origin story is almost legendary, born from this moment of just pure, relatable frustration.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The story that's often told is Reed Hastings got the idea for Netflix back in '97. He supposedly returned a copy of Apollo 13.
Right, the movie.
And got hit with this, whopping $40 late fee from his video store.
Ouch. $40.
Exactly. And that sparked the thought, there has to be a better way, less punitive. And around the same time, he heard about this new tech, DVDs. Small, light, and crucially, you could mail them easily.
Ah, the mail-friendly part.
Yeah, so supposedly he went out, bought a bunch of CDs, not even DVDs at first, and literally mailed them to himself in a regular envelope just to see if the postal system could handle it.
Just testing it out.
Right. They arrived perfectly fine 2 days later, and that's when the pieces clicked into place for this whole new business model.
So his own pain point, that late fee, was the spark for a whole new industry. That's amazing. But it wasn't totally smooth sailing right from the get-go, was it? Did they start with a more traditional model, like paper rental, even late fees?
That's absolutely right. Initially, Netflix charged, I think it was $4 per movie plus $2 for shipping. And yes, they had due dates and those extended rental fees, the very thing Hastings supposedly hated.
Huh. Why start there, then?
Well, I think they were maybe just modeling what they knew, but customers weren't happy. The shipping delay, that was a big friction point.
Yeah, waiting for the mail.
People didn't want to pay per rental and wait days for the movie. The value just wasn't quite there compared to, say, Blockbuster's instant gratification. They were sort of trying to be a mail-order Blockbuster, but without the speed.
Okay, and here's where they made that genius pivot, the game changer. Shifting to unlimited rentals with no late fees in '99. That was brilliant.
It really was.
They took that disadvantage, the shipping delay, and completely reframed it. Now, you could keep movies as long as you wanted. Suddenly, the waiting time becomes this advantage, having a movie at home all the time, ready whenever you are.
It was a huge leap of faith then, especially during the dot-com boom when everyone was focused on, immediate results, not months of testing. But it made the program so much simpler, easy to explain. And the value proposition was irresistible. Unlimited, that's powerful marketing.
Totally.
It really appealed to people who watched a lot of movies, who were sick of per-movie costs or those unpredictable late fees from the stores. It shifted the whole mindset from renting one movie to subscribing to endless entertainment.
And then came the queue. The magic of the queue. This wasn't just a list. It turned into this incredible customer retention tool. You'd build your personalized list. Netflix sends the top one. You watch it, send it back in the prepaid envelope, and boom, the next one ships out automatically. How did that simple idea get so powerful?
It was deceptively simple, but incredibly sticky. The average subscriber, I think, had something like 50 movies in their queue.
50. Wow.
Think about that. You've got this constantly refreshing, personalized well of entertainment just sitting there, waiting for you. It wasn't just convenient. It became a huge switching cost.
Ah, right. You're invested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more movies you'd carefully picked out and put in your queue, the more invested you were. It made it way harder, less appealing to just ditch the service for a competitor. Your personal movie list became this silent reason to stay loyal. It represented all this future enjoyment you'd already planned out.
That ties right into their recommendation system, another huge advantage, way beyond what physical stores could do. They didn't just push the same 5 blockbusters on everyone. They built this smart algorithm that learned your taste.
Yeah, you'd rate movies.
Right. You rate what you watch, and it suggests others based on your preferences and millions of other users like you.
And surprisingly, that was actually a bit of a battle inside Netflix itself, a cultural battle.
Right.
Well, a lot of people there were loyal to the traditional way, human curators picking the hits. But Hastings, being so focused on the internet's unique power, insisted he knew personalization was the core benefit of an online service.
Made sense.
If you could get the same generic stuff offline, why bother paying for it online? So this system, it didn't just drive demand for lesser-known films, indie movies that would never get shelf space in a store.
Right.
It also massively increased how much of their whole library got used, which meant they didn't have to buy quite as many copies of just the expensive new releases. They even launched the Netflix Prize, remember that? $1 million to improve their algorithm?
I do remember that. It showed how central data was to them.
Totally. Data and personalization were core.
And their physical distribution was just incredible. They built this massive network, 58 distribution centers by 2009, nationwide. This super optimized network meant they could get DVDs to most of their, 10.6 million subscribers the very next day.
Yeah.
Huge for customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
Plus, they had that clever trick with the USPS, right? Intercepting returns at sorting centers.
Yeah, that sped things up dramatically. It was an operational marvel, really efficient. They could ship over 1.6 million DVDs a day at their peak.
Wow.
That fast, reliable network was absolutely key. It let them compete with and even beat the immediacy of stores by delivering right to your mailbox, often before you'd even finish the movie you just sent back. No more trips to the video store.
And beyond just operations, their content strategy evolved too. Initially, they were small, had to rely on third parties, paid more per DVD, but then they brought in Ted Sarandos.
Ah, yes, Sarandos. He was key. He had deep industry connections.
Right. What did he change?
Well, Sarandos led this crucial shift towards revenue-sharing deals with the major studios. So instead of paying, say, 18 or 20 bucks up front for each DVD...
Which adds up fast.
Right. The studios agreed to take a much lower price per disc in exchange for a cut of the actual rental revenue.
Smart.
It massively lowered Netflix's costs and massively improved the selection for customers. And for smaller indie films, the ones without big marketing budgets, Netflix became this vital channel. It gave them an audience they'd never find otherwise.
Like that example, Hotel Rwanda. Tough subject matter, didn't do huge numbers in theaters.
Right.
But it became, the 4th most rented film on Netflix? More people saw it through Netflix than in cinemas. That really shows the power of their model for films outside the mainstream.
Absolutely. It highlighted stories and artists that traditional stores just wouldn't or couldn't really monetize. This huge selection, combined with the recommendation engine, really clicked with people who wanted more than just blockbusters. They wanted discovery, niche stuff, recommendations that actually got them. It felt more like belonging to a film community than just being a renter.
Okay, so Netflix is this unstoppable force, innovating everywhere, seemingly conquering everything. But while they were rising, this giant dinosaur was slowly, painfully falling. Blockbuster. the former king.
Oh yeah, Blockbuster. They were absolutely the king of VHS back in the 90s. Their whole model was built around impulse buys, focusing relentlessly on new releases.
Like those walls of new movies.
They used to boast that 70% of Americans lived within a 10-minute drive of a Blockbuster, and new releases were like 70% of their rentals. But that meant huge real estate costs, tons of part-time staff, thousands of stores, a retail behemoth built for a very different era.
And yet they had this almost fatal dismissal of online rentals. Remember back in 2002? A spokesperson called it a niche market.
And not a sustainable business model.
It's just staggering to think about that level of strategic blindness now.
It was a profound and ultimately, devastating misjudgment. They were riding high on the DVD player boom. Adoption jumped like crazy between 2001 and 2002. They just couldn't imagine a world beyond their physical stores. They thought their footprint was this unbeatable advantage, not a huge liability waiting to happen, stuck in that retail mindset.
And when they finally did get into online, in 2004, it was just too little, too late, wasn't it? They basically copied Netflix, even tried to undercut on price. Hastings called it a land grab.
They did. They even tried that Blockbuster Total Access thing, integrating online rentals with in-store exchanges, trying to leverage their stores.
To remember that.
It was a desperate, maybe slightly innovative attempt, but Netflix had already defined the online market. Blockbuster was playing catch-up with a fundamentally different, more efficient model. Their cost structure was just way too high to compete effectively online.
And then came the really desperate move, getting rid of late fees in 2005.
Oh, the no late fees flop. Yeah.
They saw Netflix using it as a differentiator, so they copied it. But it apparently cost them something like $600 million a year in revenue. Just, wow.
It was a Hail Mary that just didn't work. Sure, it maybe boosted store traffic a bit, placated some angry customers, but it didn't come close to making up for that lost revenue. Their main rental income barely grew, while their costs stayed enormous. They were bleeding cash trying to mimic a competitor built on a totally different foundation.
So inevitably, 2010 rolls around, and Blockbuster files for Chapter 11, the end of an era.
Yep, the inevitable end.
And as context is so important because Netflix had done it. They'd beaten the giant, the titan. They were the victor, the innovator, the leader. And that huge success, ironically, maybe set the stage for their next really big blunder.
It definitely shapes the mindset heading into 2011. A sense of maybe being invincible, perhaps a touch of hubris after taking down such a huge, entrenched player.
Yeah.
They'd proved people wrong before, so why couldn't they do it again? Even if it meant upsetting some customers short-term for this bigger, long-term vision, that kind of confidence is powerful, but also, risky.
Okay, so Netflix is on top of the world. Blockbuster is history. They're swimming in customer love, market adoration. But even while dominating DVDs, Hastings had this bigger vision. He'd been talking about it for years. The future was streaming.
He was remarkably prescient, almost uncannily so. Way back in 2001 to 2003, he was clear. Netflix wasn't just about DVDs by mail. It was about the best home video viewing, period.
Right, regardless of format.
He even said something like, our hope is we'll eventually be able to download more movies. It's why we named the business Netflix and not DVD by mail. He saw the potential for video on demand long before most of the industry really believed it was mass market ready. He envisioned instant, everywhere content.
And they started building that streaming foundation meticulously. Launched View instantly back in 2007, right? Often it's just a small add-on cost. Leveraged their brand, that great recommendation engine we talked about.
But building it was tough, really arduous, especially getting the content licensed. That was totally different from DVDs.
How so?
Well, with DVDs, you had the first sale doctrine. They could just buy a disc and rent it out over and over, no extra fees.
Right, they own the physical copy.
But streaming, that content had to be licensed directly from studios, which meant paying royalties for every single viewing or for a set time period. It made streaming content way more expensive, complicated, and unpredictable to acquire.
Big deals involved then.
Huge deals. Their first big one was with Starz in 2008, brought about 2,500 titles, which was a lot then. By 2010, they signed a nearly $1 billion deal for movies from Paramount, Lionsgate, MGM. These were massive, multi-year, multi-hundred million dollar bets on the future.
And beyond content, they went hard on getting Netflix on every device imaginable.
Oh yeah, totally aggressive strategy there. Roku, Xbox, other consoles, smart TVs, eventually phones and tablets like iPhone, iPad. They knew people watch movies mainly on TVs, not just computers, and they systematically made Netflix available everywhere.
Smart move.
And crucially, they made that huge forward-thinking decision to move their whole streaming infrastructure to Amazon Web Services, AWS. That was after a big database corruption incident in 2008.
AWS. Why was that so important?
Before AWS, building and maintaining the kind of global data centers Netflix needed was this massive, expensive headache. Moving to AWS wasn't just about fixing one problem, it was about outsourcing the heavy lifting of infrastructure.
Okay.
It let Netflix scale globally almost infinitely without building server farms everywhere. Huge game changer for their speed, resilience, and international plans. They could focus on content and the user experience, not managing servers.
So all these pieces came together. And in 2010, they hit this major tipping point.
Right?
Most of their subscribers were actually watching more via streaming than via DVD. Internally, the company was all in. They expected to be primarily a global streaming business. The future had arrived.
And it was exactly that rapid, almost explosive growth of streaming compared to the older DVD business that really sparked Hastings' next big, and as we know now, deeply unpopular decision. The old business was basically funding the growth of the new one.
Though unpopular doesn't even begin to cover it. This was the price hike heard around the internet, echoed everywhere for weeks. So from inside Netflix, what was the thinking? What was the strategic reason for dropping this bomb?
Well, from Hastings' point of view, streaming and DVDs were quickly becoming quite different businesses, totally different costs, different operational needs, different benefits for the customer. He really believed they needed to be managed and marketed separately to grow properly without one holding the other back.
Okay, separation for growth.
His biggest fear, he often said, was that Netflix wouldn't make that jump successfully from DVDs to streaming dominance. He believed companies rarely die from moving too fast, and they frequently die from moving too slowly. He was convinced a bold, decisive, maybe even painful move was needed for Netflix's long-term future. He was looking way down the road.
So with that conviction, July 2011, they dropped the bomb, announced they're separating streaming and DVD services completely. And the kicker, each service individually would now cost $7.99 a month.
And that's where the math just slammed customers. If you were an existing customer who had the basic DVD plan plus the streaming add-on, you were paying, what, $9.99 a month for both. Nice and simple.
Oh, good deal.
Now, if you wanted to keep both services, the price suddenly leaped to $15.98. That's a shocking 60% increase for what felt like the exact same thing you had yesterday. It didn't feel like an upgrade. It felt like, well, like getting gouged.
And that right there is why the public outcry was just massive, swift, brutal. The company's rationale that streaming only was technically cheaper for new users, totally drowned out by the tsunami of rage from existing loyal customers. They felt like they were being overcharged, yes, but also almost punished for sticking around.
Yeah.
Textbook mismanagement of customer expectations during a really critical shift.
The immediate fallout was severe, undeniable. Subscriber growth, Netflix's signature, ground to a halt in Q3. The company had to publicly walk back its forecasts, expecting to lose an alarming 3 million DVD subscribers, like a fifth of their base.
Wow.
And they thought streaming subs would stay flat or even decline. The market just clearly rejected the strategy and how they rolled it out.
A 60% price hike, delivered with what felt like zero empathy or clear explanation. That's a tough pill to swallow, no matter how great your long-term plan is. But somehow, it got even worse, didn't it? Because then, just a couple of months later, came the Qwikster calamity. You almost couldn't make this stuff up.
Indeed, just when you thought the storm had passed. September 2011, Hastings drops another bombshell. The company is splitting entirely. Streaming stays as Netflix, the beloved name, but the DVD buy mail service spun off into a totally separate company called Qwikster.
Qwikster. Qwikster. You just know the marketing meeting for that name was something else. It sounds like a cartoon character, or maybe instant oatmeal.
Chuckle slightly. Yeah, the name didn't help.
But Hastings genuinely had this vision for it, right? Two separate companies serving two different markets, each free to innovate.
That was the core idea, exactly. He believed streaming and physical DVDs needed to operate independently. Different costs, different operations, different customer needs, diverging fast. He saw it as crucial for the future, especially for the capital-heavy, fast-growing streaming world. The DVD business, while profitable, was seen as kind of a drag on that vision.
Okay, so the vision maybe made sense internally.
Perhaps, but the PR and the execution around it were just disastrous.
And then came the apology. Hastings posts this long, kind of rambling blog post trying to explain it all, saying, it is clear many members felt we lacked respect and humility. I offer my sincere apology. Felt a bit like watching one of those awkward celebrity apology videos, you know?
Yeah, a little bit. Earnest justifications, trying to explain that deep fear he had of moving too slowly. He cited cautionary tales like Borders bookstores dying because they didn't embrace digital fast enough. That internal struggle was real for him, and his honesty was unusual for a CEO. He genuinely believed companies rarely die from moving too fast, and they frequently die from moving too slowly. He saw this bold, almost ruthless move as essential for Netflix's streaming future.
But the execution.
The execution was terrible. A huge price hike immediately followed by this confusing, badly named company split. It was a double whammy. Customers felt abandoned, undervalued. His fear of obsolescence drove actions that alienated his core supporters.
And the market customers and investors reacted loud and clear. They hated it. The subscriber revolt just kept going. Thousands criticizing the plan online, canceling, venting everywhere.
And the stock market carnage was immediate and brutal. Netflix stock, flying high at $300 earlier that year, just crashed, down to $77 in October.
$77.
It wasn't just a misstep, it was a financial hemorrhage. Billions wiped off their value. A really stark lesson that even visionaries have to listen to their current customers or risk losing everything.
So what do you do when your grand plan blows up that spectacularly, that publicly, that painfully? Well, you do what very few leaders have the guts to do. A fast, decisive retreat.
Exactly. By mid-October, just weeks after announcing Qwikster, they completely reversed course, publicly abandoned the split, brought DVDs back under the single Netflix umbrella.
Wow. Quick reversal.
It was a stunning admission of error. Really showed the power of that public and market backlash.
And Hastings' honesty afterward was, frankly, pretty unprecedented for a CEO like him. He talked openly about humility. He even made this surprising comparison to marriage counseling 20 years ago, saying it taught him the value of honesty in leadership.
That was quite something.
He felt people could handle honesty, even bad news, if it felt sincere and showed a willingness to learn. It felt like a very human moment in this whole corporate meltdown. He admitted the mistake, swallowed his pride, changed course.
It definitely showed a remarkable willingness to admit fault and course correct, not always easy for successful, visionary leaders. But the damage, short-term at least, was done. Subnumbers took a hit, the stock stayed low for a while. Rebuilding that trust was a huge job.
So after that dramatic U-turn, that corporate mea culpa, Netflix had this massive hangover. Reversing Qwikster was good PR. But the deeper strategic problem was still there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How do you move forward after fumbling that big transition so badly?
Absolutely. Abandoning Qwikster didn't solve the fundamental issue. How do you gracefully shift from a really profitable, high-margin DVD business, which was still making good money, to this leaner, lower-margin, super capital-intensive streaming business, all while keeping 20 million customer relationships from fraying further? The economics were just so different. The old business was a comfy, profitable crutch they eventually had to ditch.
It's that paradox of success again, isn't it? The very growth in streaming, the thing they wanted, the thing that was a success, ironically led straight to these missteps in managing the transition. They were so focused on the future, on what could be, they almost completely alienated the present, the customers who built them up. What are the typical traps here, the biases?
That's a really key question. You see things like the innovator's dilemma or incumbent's curse, where successful companies struggle with new tech because it eats into their existing profitable business, so they underinvest or overcharge trying to protect the old way.
Right.
There's also confirmation bias. Leaders look for info that confirms what they already believe, ignoring customer feedback that doesn't fit. And escalation of commitment, making a big public bet, makes it really hard to back down, even when the evidence says you should. Hastings actually showed great humility by not sticking with Qwikster for too long.
Good point.
They were trying to get ahead of the curve, but they lost sight of how current customers perceived the immediate value and the emotional connection they had to that simple bundled service.
Let's quickly revisit that streaming landscape they were trying to conquer. Early on, VOD, video on demand, was seen as the next big thing, but it had limitations Netflix eventually cracked. What were those early hurdles?
Right. Back around 2007, early VOD players like Vongo, Cinema Now, even cable satellite offerings, they struggled mainly with technology and content. Users often watched on clunky computer screens. The experience was often bad buffering, low resolution.
Yeah.
And maybe more critically, studios were super hesitant to license their newer popular stuff. They fueled piracy, and they feared hurting their really profitable DVD sales. As Hastings pointed out, unlike DVDs you could buy and rent freely, that first sale doctrine we mentioned, electronic content needed direct, difficult, and very expensive licenses. Every view cost them money.
Ah, okay. And this leads to what became the real battleground for streaming, maybe Netflix's greatest long-term advantage, especially original content. Ted Sarandos again, right? He saw this coming.
Sarandos was absolutely the driving force behind originals. Hastings was initially skeptical, famously told him, "We mail DVDs, Ted," when Sarandos first suggested doing what HBO did with original series.
Oh.
Yeah. But Sarandos saw the power of exclusive, high-quality content to differentiate them. He pushed relentlessly for House of Cards. Huge gamble. Over $100 million for the first 2 seasons.
Wow. Big bet.
But its undeniable success completely changed Hastings' mind and honestly the whole industry. That led to massive ongoing investment in originals, became core to Netflix's identity, their global growth, their defense against competitors.
And here's a great irony in all this. Netflix was relying heavily on Amazon Web Services, AWS, for its whole streaming backbone, letting them scale globally. Meanwhile, Amazon itself was becoming this huge, deep-pocketed competitor with Prime Video. It's like buying your flour from the bakery next door that's trying to put you out of business.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
It really highlights how complex modern business ecosystems are. You end up relying on critical services from companies that are also your direct competitors elsewhere.
Yeah, tricky.
Navigating that takes a clear sense of where your real advantage is. For Netflix, it was content and user experience, not owning servers. The risk is your partner could cut you off or hike prices, but the benefit is huge scale and less operational headache. It's this delicate dance, strategic alliances and rivalry at the same time, constantly weighing trade-offs, making sure you're not building your house entirely on someone else's land without an exit plan. The irony is, Amazon's infrastructure helped build a competitor that pushed Amazon itself to get better at content faster.
So after this whole saga, innovation, triumph, blunder, retreat, what are the key lessons, the takeaways, maybe still being learned, from Netflix's wild ride in 2011?
Well, the first, maybe most obvious one is just how critical customer empathy is and clear, transparent communication during big strategic shifts. You can have the most brilliant long-term vision, truly industry-changing, but if you alienate your existing customers, make them feel disrespected or ignored, you're in deep trouble. Customer empathy in a fast-moving tech world means anticipating not just the logical impact of your decisions, but the emotional impact. Explaining the why in a way people connect with, even if the news is tough. Netflix learned a price hike needs to feel like an investment in the customer's future, not just the company's bottom line.
It's that incredibly fine line, isn't it, between being visionary, pushing forward, and maybe moving too fast for your customers. You want to disrupt, lead the charge, but you don't want to disrupt your loyal base right out the door. How do leaders find that balance?
It takes a really sharp understanding of both market trends and customer psychology. Look at Netflix's later price hikes, often smaller, more gradual, and crucially, usually paired with big announcements about new exclusive content.
Right, showing the value.
The value exchange was much clearer. They learned customers will tolerate price increases if they clearly see more value, a better offering, not just paying more for the same old thing. They also brought in different tiers, letting people choose based on what they value.
And Reed Hastings himself, even after being, harshly criticized by analysts even before 2011, he seemed to adopt this interesting view on negative feedback. He said something like, "I think it is healthy to have smart people make negative arguments about Netflix. It sharpens our thinking." He seemed to genuinely believe criticism could be vital for making better decisions.
That's a profound shift for many leaders. It's easy to just dismiss criticism, especially when you're successful and seen as a visionary. But Hastings' willingness to not just hear negative feedback, but internalize it, use it to refine strategy, that shows a rare kind of intellectual humility. It meant turning a PR disaster into a crucial learning moment, forcing them to rethink their communication, their pricing, their whole relationship with customers. It sharpens thinking, yes, but also resilience. They ultimately focused on creating value that justified the price, rather than just imposing the price.
Well, we've certainly seen Netflix go from industry darling to the star of its own corporate drama. Made some huge blunders, absolutely, but also showed incredible resilience, a real willingness to learn. It's a truly fascinating story of a company that stumbled badly, but ultimately found its way back to global dominance.
It really is a powerful case study, managing disruption, balancing foresight with empathy, learning to pivot not just technologically, but strategically, culturally.
So what does this deep dive into Netflix's crazy 2011 tell you about leading through disruptive change today? When is it right to make that bold, maybe alienating move? And when is humility, clear communication, and a steady hand the better way? This story is such a powerful reminder that even the most successful companies, the sharpest minds, can stumble badly in uncharted territory. The key often isn't just seeing the future, but how gracefully or maybe how awkwardly you guide your customers towards it, making them feel like partners on the journey, not just, passengers being taken for a ride. See you later. Bye-bye.